Hello YouTube, this is Scott with Linux for Today, and guess what time it is? You guessed it, it's time for another installation series. Aren't we so happy? Some of you may be psychic enough, or psycho, or one of those psych words, to use divine intervention to determine that this might actually be on Arch Linux. If you did, it's magic. I don't know how you figured it out. But anyway, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to do an installation series on Arch Linux, and what I'm going to do is demonstrate how this works on small hardware. So I'm going to do the 686 version. And before we get started, I'll show you the specifics that we did here. It recommends 512 megs of RAM, so that's exactly what I did. I left my display at 12 megs, and there is no 3D rendering. I used the default 8 gig for the 8 gigabytes for the hard drive, and I mounted my ISO, which is an entire 595 megabytes of space, and that is a dual architecture image. So the 64-bit and the 32-bit are both on the same disk. Okay, just left everything else as default, and we're just going to go from there. So let's get started. Tiny machines, here we come. All right, so we're going to do the 32-bit. Let this thing get booted up. Now, this Arch Linux is a lot like, say, Gentoo or Slackware or BSD. It does not have a graphical installer. This is where it is different than Ubuntu. This is where it's different than, actually, it could be even different than Debian, because Debian even has a dialogue-based text installer that asks you all these questions in sequential order, but Arch does not. And it's a big turnoff, especially for new users. But don't let it scare you too much, even though this is actually aimed for, I wouldn't exactly say it's aimed at veteran Linux users. I mean, you just if you're familiar with the command line, or you're comfortable with the command line and don't have a problem with learning new things, then Arch could end up being for you. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go through this kind of quick, because this video series is not aimed at the brand new Linux users. It's aimed at people that have already experienced Linux a little bit. So we're just going to go from there. And the first thing we're going to do is partition our drive, which is SDA. All right, as you can tell, there's no partitions on it. We're going to create a new partition. This is going to be a primary partition. We started with an 8 gig drive, and it's got 512 megs RAM, so we're going to give it a gig of space for RAM, or for a swap. Our default is going to be 1, yes, and a plus 7G. We're going to leave that other gig for swap. Okay, we're going to go ahead and toggle the boot switch on this. So when we hit print, we got 7 gig Linux that's bootable. So I'm going to create another one that's going to be primary. It's going to be number 2. It's going to do all the defaults, take up the rest of the hard drive space. We're going to change that type on device 2 to number 82, which is swap. If you don't know what the different types are, that's fine. When you hit T, it'll ask you hex code type L. You know, to list all the codes, you just hit capital L, and it lists all the different codes in there. A lot of Linux users are fairly familiar with the 3 most common ones, which are 83, 82, and 8E is an echo. 83 is Linux, 82 is swap, and then 8E is LVM. So we'll go ahead and print that again, make sure we have our partitions the way we want. And it looks like it is, so we're going to go ahead and write that to disk. Now we're going to go ahead and make our swap. And we're going to turn that swap on. And we're going to make a file system ext4 on dev SDA1. And then we're going to mount devsta1 on pre-existing directory called mount. Then we're going to make a couple directories here real quick, which is mount boot, which is required for our bootloader, and then we're going to go ahead and put home in there too. Okay. Now at this point, if you have a wired internet, you should already have a connection. If you're using a wireless, then you need to run a tool called Wi-Fi menu -0 or -O, the letter O, lowercase o, and it will, or it should, I should say, detect your wireless device. And it's pretty good at doing so. I've got a fairly new, I run Arch right here. This is my host operating system. I recently switched to Arch from Linux Mint because I got tired of all the stuff that was in it that wasn't necessary. It's not needed to run a decent Linux machine. So I recently switched to Arch, and I have an Intel, one of the newer Intel dual band AC, gigabit kind of cards, and Arch recognized it just fine. So the chances are excellent that it's going to see your Wi-Fi card. All right, so if you did have the wireless, remember there's going to be additional steps for you later on, and I will show you exactly when and where those are at. Okay, so what we're going to do now is from here forward, I'm going to assume you have an internet connection. Actually, let's go ahead and test it. Ping-C3, google.com. As you can tell, we got an internet connection. So everything forward is assuming that you have an internet connection. If you do not have an internet connection, you'll probably have to go back to Arch's website and dig through their wiki and figure out why. Okay, we're going to pack strap on mount, and we're going to do base. And I like to just go ahead and do base devil because we're going to have that stuff later anyway. So we're going to go ahead and strap it in now. And I'm going to go ahead and hit enter and let this get started. I'm going to break the video right here while this is loading, and I will see you on the next video.